Hi readers, Lee here. Welcome back to my channel, Lila Wanders and Reads, and welcome to my weekend books. This week started off really rough for me. And this is when I ended my Booker banned project. I had been reading a Booker long list book and then a banned book in Utah. And this last book just broke me. I still have 2 more books to read in that project, but I had to stop. I had to take some time for me. It's all time for me. First of all, This Strange Eventful History by Claire Messud. I was disappointed in the binding because I crack my spines all the time, and this is unacceptable. I'm not going to reread the blurb on this. I did it in my Booker long list video, but several other people, I guess more than several, have loved this book. It's the story of a family. It starts out in Algeria, I believe. It just dragged for me. There were a couple, it's told from different perspectives, which I don't mind, but it just dragged for me until I got up to about this point, and I skipped and I read the end, and I never do that. There's a shocking reveal at the end that probably would have been a lot more shocking had I cared, and I didn't, and that makes me sad. But after that, I was like, I can't anymore. I've had, for the most part, a really joyous experience with my Booker project, and I have 3 books that I really loved, and one that I appreciated, but I think was a little bit over my head. So I just stopped. So then I went to the Barnes & Noble because I needed some fresh blood, even though I have thousands of fresh blood books. But I picked up Disclaimer by Renee Knight. In this, documentary filmmaker Catherine Ravenscroft has no idea who might have sent the book that has mysteriously appeared on her nightstand. At first, she's intrigued by the suspenseful story that unfolds in the pages of The Perfect Stranger. But curiosity quickly turns to horror when she realizes the book isn't fiction. The Perfect Stranger recreates in vivid, unmistakable detail the day Catherine became hostage to a dark secret, a secret that only one other person knew, and that person is dead. Catherine's world soon begins to fall apart as the past she so desperately tried to forget catches up with her. Plunged into a living nightmare, her only hope is to confront what really happened that awful day, even if the shocking truth might destroy her. I think that when I read this, I was still being negatively affected by my experience with This Strange Eventful History, because I thought that this book was just okay. I thought it took a little too long to get to the point, but now that I'm rereading the description and thinking back on it, I think it's still a 3-star book, good book, but I think I would have enjoyed it better had I not just quit on The Strange Eventful History. It was a good thriller. She peppers in just enough clues that keep you right on the verge of discovery. I'll give it that. And Catherine's husband is a dick. And although that's all I can say without spoiling it, I do love when an author writes a character so that you hate them. Like, if I don't feel any... Prime example, I didn't feel anything for any of these characters. I just didn't care. I hated Catherine's husband. That evoked an emotion in me. So, kudos for that. Next up is an eagerly anticipated book of mine. And I'm not going to say that it is still, carryover from The Strange Eventful History. But I did have some problems at the very beginning of Rise and Divine by Lana Harper. It is all about descriptions. I wrote here that, so when she's introducing the world, you have to describe the world so that your reader can see it. The descriptions are sometimes just a little too much. They are overly flowery. I wrote, what? I'd had a productive morning, and the weather was Thistle Grove's early fall perfection, vibrant and flawless as a stained glass window. I don't think I've ever heard the weather referred to as a stained glass window, and I don't think I ever want to hear about it again. That said, once she got past the descriptions, I really enjoyed it, except for one other thing. I would have appreciated a bit more subtlety on something that occurred involving someone. But let me tell you what this book is about, because overall I enjoyed it. I've loved the series. I probably would have been more forgiving, again, had I not started off the week so badly. Even in a family of chaotic necromancers, Dasha Avramov has always been an outlier. An event planner at the Arcane Emporium, an occult megastore, Dasha is also a devil eater, a rare necromantic witch with an affinity for banishing demons and traversing the veil, the boundary between this realm and the next. Still grieving the loss of her beloved parents years ago and plagued by a dangerous obsession with the world beyond the veil, Dasha is fiery yet guarded, an expert at dodging commitment. Her worst regret is a devastating breakup with the wise, empathetic, and sensual Ivy Thorne, her event planning counterpart at Honeycake Orchards, and probably the love of Dasha's life. Dasha has managed to break Ivy's heart not once, but twice. So things are more than a little tense between them. When they're thrown together to plan the cavalcade, a month-long festival celebrating the Thistle Grove's ceremonial founding, with dazzling spectacles held by the town's witch families, Dasha hopes that the third time might be a charm, while Ivy refuses to let herself be hurt again. I want to stop right there. Where I give Harper kudos is there is a really... Dasha is suffering from grief and depression over the loss of her parents, and there is a really good description in here of that suffering. So that, and there was another place in here that also... it's about death and grief. And this was, I found, as opposed to the flowery descriptions, this was beautiful and appropriate and not overtly flowery. This is about her mother and the death of her mother. The ache fissured inside me like it always did when I thought about my mother, fracturing outward from the star crack embedded in my very center, no less sharp even 4 years after the fact. It was as though her death had been a form of grievous physical injury, an insult that my body would never fully forget. Loved that paragraph. Look, I highly recommend the Thistle Grove, even though I can't say it, series. It's 5 books. It was fun. It was modern and fresh. I just wish that she would have... Maybe I didn't notice it in the earlier books. Maybe. Who knows? Anywho, I do recommend this, and I recommend the series. This has enough that overcomes the things I disliked, that I am glad that I read it. The next book that I read this week was a gothic book, and I read it for online book club, which we will be discussing this next Wednesday, and that is The Woman in Black by Susan Hill. One thing I discovered is that gothic moves a little bit too slowly for me, but the ending on The Woman in Black, I loved it. And overall, this is when I started having a better time. In The Woman in Black, Arthur Kipps is an up-and-coming London solicitor who is sent to Crithen Gifford, a faraway town in the I hate when they have white writing, I can't read it, in the windswept salt marshes beyond Nine Lives Causeway, to attend the funeral and settle the affairs of a client, Mrs. Alice Drablow of Eel Marsh House. Mrs. Drablow's house stands at the end of the causeway, wreathed in fog and mystery, but Kipps is unaware of the tragic secrets that lie hidden behind its sheltered windows. I am having a problem with my S's today. The routine business trip he anticipated quickly takes a horrifying turn when he finds himself haunted by a series of mysterious sounds and images. A rocking chair in a deserted nursery, the eerie sound of a pony and a trap, a pony and trap, a child's scream in the fog, and, the most terrifying of all, a ghostly woman dressed all in black. I had a really good time with this one. It was maybe a little bit slow, but it was just, I think I had to pay attention a little bit more. I loved this. I cannot wait to discuss this. I like how everything is revealed. And again, why? That's not what I meant to say. That ending is fucking fire. Recommend. If you like Gothic, if you don't like Gothic, let me be clear, it didn't scare me. I did try to watch the movie, but about midway through this book, but there were some things that, at least to me, watching the first 10 minutes or so, were huge departures from the book. I can't say for sure because I did not take it any further. I just stopped it and I went back to the book and finished the book. But a funny thing happened. While I was reading this, it gave me vibes of something that is not Gothic, but that it made me feel like that. And that is The Ghost and Mrs. Muir, also a movie. I think it was in why are they not going to show me this? Yeah. God damn it. I had a search pulled up and my phone just lost it. 1947 film. This is by Ara Dick, and I wonder if the author was trolling us from 1945 with that. The Irish writer Josephine Leslie wrote under this name, R.A. Dick, but she said she took the initials from her sea captain father, Robert Abercrombie. My mother and I love the movie, and I was wondering why I had 2 copies of this book, and this copy was a copy that I gave to my mother for Christmas 1998. I hope you enjoyed this book as much as we both enjoyed the movie. So I don't know if she ever read it or not, or I don't remember if she ever read it or not. But The Ghost and Mrs. Muir is a romance, and it's set in the mid-1900s, and a widow moves with her children into a haunted house. The house is haunted by a sea captain. I adored it. I adored it to pieces. This was, I think I said that it was a delight. It was. I loved every word of this book. So, it's not Gothic, but there is a ghost, and dear to my heart, 5 stars, loved it. She also wrote a book called The Devil and Mrs. Divine. I might check and see that if they have it, because I hope that at my local Barnes & Noble, because I hope that it is as good as The Ghost and Mrs. Muir. Let's do a little sleuthing. The Devil and Mrs. Divine. was published in 1974? Anyway, there's no blurb on The Ghost and Mrs. Muir, so I have nothing to read except for to tell you it's a beautiful romance. It's about life and independence as a woman, and it was a delight. So, that is it. I'm recording this on a Saturday, and I considered not recording it until Sunday, but I've got to mow on Sunday if it's dry enough, so I gotta wash my hair. I don't usually, after I mow, I'm all red-faced, so didn't want to wait. I wanted to do it where I'm not red-faced. So, that is it for last week, and then I went off on a tangent where I'm going to tell you that the next book that I'm currently reading is what I was going to wait to end the week with, but I decided not to because of mowing, etc. So that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 books that I read this week. Not bad. On the nonfiction side, I am still reading The Story of an Army, Home Before Morning, the story of an Army nurse in Vietnam. This, I started at the beginning of the week, on the 1st, and I will probably finish it long before the end of the month. This book is brutal. So, young girl grows up in the Arlington, Virginia area her entire life, decides to to join the army as an army nurse and get sent to Vietnam. And at the point I'm at, she goes through, and that part's a little slow, how she got up to Vietnam. But now she's in there, and the things that she sees in the operating room are just tragic and horrible, and no wonder she had PTSD upon her return. I said before, and I mean this because I'm going to need a little bit of time. I am definitely, now there's no question, going to do a standalone book review when I finish this. It's brutal, it's heartbreaking, it's beautiful, and I can't wait to move forward with this book. If you're interested in this kind of stuff, I highly recommend it. Highly. Okay, so I usually don't read on Friday nights because my brain is fried, but I had spent some time earlier reading this, and this is where I had to make a decision when I was going to record my weekend books and where this next book that I'm currently reading would fit, and it's going to be in next week's. But because I had been reading this, I finally decided to pick up Kristin Hanna's The Great Alone, and I read more than half of it last night. Like, I could not put this book down. I wanted to go further, but I started to get tired, and I was like, I need to put it down. So now I'm going to have to go back a few pages because I've started to have to go remember what I was reading when I was a little tired. I love Kristin Hanna, or Hannah. I'm not sure how she pronounces it. Probably should have Googled that. This was rated Goodreads Best Historical Novel of the Year, 2018. And I am, so far, second that emotion. Alaska, 1974. White font. The Albrights are a family in crisis. They are alone, living off the grid in a harsh, unforgiving wilderness. They're not really alone, by the way, but whatever. Ernst Albright has come home from the Vietnam War, a changed and volatile man, and has made the impulsive decision to move his wife and daughter north to America's last true frontier. So I kind of wonder about that still. He's definitely changed and definitely has PTSD, and he is volatile, but I wonder what he was like before. and if he had some of this stuff in him already. Cora Albright will do anything for the man she loves, even if it means following him into the unknown. 13-year-old Lenny, caught in the riptide of her parents' passionate, stormy relationship, has little choice but to go along, daring to hope this new land promises her family a better future. Even though they have found a small, independent community of strong men and even stronger women, winter is approaching. Darkness is descending, and Ernst's fragile mental state is deteriorating. Soon the perils outside pale in comparison to threats from within. In their small cabin, covered in snow, blanketed in 18 hours of night, Lenny and her mother learn the terrible truth. They are on their own. I don't think the author had much input in the blurb. In the wild, there's no one to save them but themselves. Anywho, back of the book aside, I'm loving this book. It's unputdownable, except I had to put it down. I may do a special Thursday post and do a review of this. I'm leaning toward that. I have not decided whether to do it or not. I've already got Book Talk Tuesday scheduled and recorded, so I don't know. I'll decide. I'll let you know. Anyway, love this so far. I am also, on the audiobooks side, I am still listening to The History of Sound, and I do have trouble paying attention because it's in the car, and sometimes I gotta pay attention to the road, but I'm enjoying this. This gives me sometimes some horror vibes, even though it's literary fiction, I guess. It's billed as a love letter to New England. There are 12 stories set across 3 centuries. Do they not have the stories listed? They don't have a... Okay, no they do. So I'm at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I'm on story 8, which is exactly this far in the book. And the last 2 stories, story 6, which was called August in the Forest, I was like, it's okay. But they came to one part in there that I found really creepy, and I thought maybe something was going to happen. But turns out something was not going to happen. Something had happened, and somehow the author gets that sense across so many years in the future. But story 7 is the tale of what happened at that place back in 1908. So I'm really enjoying this. And I've made a decision, at least for the next book or so, that my next audiobook is going to be another collection of short stories. That's what I'm halfway finished with, You Like It Darker by Stephen King. But I think I may have better luck with short stories than in audio form rather than in reading form, because I will put it down and then I will want a longer novel. But we will see how that one works for us. Anywho, I've kind of been rambling a little bit. I tend to do that. Gone on a few tangents. Nope, that's all I'm going to talk about. I will, I do have another book club coming up. I will probably read that next. We'll see. Anywho, that is it for me and my rambling gray Saturday musings. Happy reading. Oh, sorry. I did want to shout out to all the new subscribers. I appreciate you having you here, and I will put links to all the books that I've mentioned down in the description box. Happy reading. Why are you being like that? Sorry, my camera's being wobbly and weird.